Welcome to another edition of E.W. Jackson for America. Great to be with you. Hope you had a wonderful weekend. I had an opportunity to spend time with Jason Whitlock at Roll Call 2.0, Fearless Men. Great men's conference. Wow, I had about 750, 800 men there down in Nashville, Tennessee on Saturday. Had a wonderful time. Got to meet Vodi Bakum, Alan Jackson, and a number of got to actually meet the country singer. This is terrible because I won't follow it. I think it's John Rich. I think country singer John Rich. Is that it? But at any rate, it was a great program, and got to meet some tremendous entrepreneurs, Christian entrepreneurs who are doing wonderful things in business. So it was really encouraging and uplifting for me as well. To participate and to listen, not simply to speak. So this is, of course, we are 1 week now from our Stand Awards dinner, and it is too late at this point to buy tickets, and I don't think we have any more complimentary tickets available. So if you haven't reserved a spot, sorry, I think this is the first year I've had to say this, but we're full. However, it is not too late to sponsor. It is not too late to contribute. If you want to help us, we are still receiving support and contributions. Of course, that's going to go on anyway. But if you really believe in what we're doing and you want to help us, don't let the timeline for the dinner having passed get in your way. You can go to the website, standamerica.us, and you can still contribute. You can still sponsor. Certainly not too late for that. We'll be recognizing all of our sponsors, including those who may be coming in late. And we are still believing that more sponsors are going to be coming in. So feel free to support us in whatever way you can. And remember, and I don't say this blithely or cavalierly, we always solicit your prayers, because prayers produce resources. Resources are never a substitute for prayer. You can have all the resources in the world and no relationship with God, and that can all dry up and go away. But you can have virtually nothing and have a relationship with God, and He can bring you the abundance that you need to do what needs to be done. So please, whatever else you do or don't do, pray for us. That is not optional, okay? If you're a supporter, if you're somebody who believes in what we're doing, we need your prayers. And I don't say that lightly. 15 years into this. And I mean, Stand's existed for 15 years. As of July 4th, it'll be officially 15 years. And God has brought us, as the old song says, from a mighty long way. And that's the truth. But I don't believe He brought us this far just to leave us. And so we've got a long way to go, okay? And I'm going to stay at it until I breathe my final breath, or until America has come to its senses and become once again a Judeo-Christian nation where certain things are just beyond debate. Nobody needs to debate them because they're settled matters. Just like the Founding Fathers said, we hold these truths to be self-evident. They didn't say these whims, fancies, passing ideas, fads, fashions, but these truths. See, fads and fashions come and go and change. Truth is eternal. Said we hold these truths to be self-evident. And as long as we're standing on the truth, we're going to be fighting this good fight until America comes back to the truth and says, you know what? Bishop Jackson and all these others who were telling us that America doesn't work without God, that America needs God, that God is the central figure in our success, they were right and we were wrong. And we are a Judeo-Christian nation. We're going to stop denying that and rebelling against that and start adhering to that. That's when I quit. I mean, that's when I quit fighting, because there's nothing to fight over. But of course, we know that in this fallen and sin-sick world, that is not going to happen. Because the devil's going to stay busy until Jesus locks him up in hell in the lake of fire. He's going to stay busy. And even after 1,000 years of being locked up, he's going to get out and start this mess all over again for the final put down. So as long as we're in this phase of life, we are going to be fighting, and I intend to fight until the Lord calls me home. And I'm not planning for that to happen anytime soon, okay? So we're in it to win it. That's when we quit. We quit when we win. And of course, we've already won, ultimately. But we're supposed to occupy until he comes, right? Supposed to do business until he comes. Okay. Look, I got a short program today because I'm going to be doing American Family Radio with Jeff Shreve this morning. And so I've got to get ready. I got to do that. So I'm going to have to end this program early so I can join him at the top of the hour. So let me get to the issue that I want to get to. And here again, those of you who are coming to the dinner, looking forward to seeing you on June the 11th at 7 o'clock at Cornerstone Chapel, 650 Battlefield Parkway Southeast in Leesburg, Virginia. For those of you who aren't going, but you support the work we're doing, or you can't go, but you support the work we do, go to our website, contribute, buy a ticket, make a donation, or sponsor. I mean, sponsorships, again, there's no timeline, no end date for sponsorships. You can sponsor right up to the dinner, okay? And we will acknowledge whatever sponsorships come in between now and then. But we can't accommodate any more people coming to the dinner because we basically given our final count and sold out. So, but thank you all for all your prayers and all your support, and pray that the dinner will be successful spiritually. Most importantly, that it'll be successful numerically in terms of people showing up and people coming. We've got the tickets are sold, and complimentary tickets have been given away. So we're expecting a big crowd, but you know how this goes. You know, bad weather, things get in the way. And there's always a little bit of attrition, too, we found with these events. You know, you don't have the same number of people show up, usually, as have reserved. Usually, you can reduce that by about 10% or so. But we can't take a chance on not having dinners for everybody who's reserved space. So that's where we are. The number we have at this point now is the number we have. Okay. Let me get to the issue I want to talk about today in the 20 minutes or so that I've got left. You know, you often hear me say, I don't hate anybody. I don't. I really don't. I don't live a life of resentment or bitterness or hatred or anger. For one thing, the love of God has been shed abroad in our hearts by the Holy Spirit, and God has changed us. So we make true Christians, make very poor haters. We can't really hate. We can't. I mean, doesn't mean you can't get angry at people and feel resentment or, you know, be irritated with people or, you know, distrust people. I mean, you know, all those emotions that come with the horrible things that people can do to other human beings, you can certainly feel all those. But we don't, as Kenneth Hagin used to say, you can't stop birds from flying over your head, but you can certainly stop them from nesting in your hair. So we don't nurse those emotions. We don't nest them. We don't let them take root in us, okay? So I don't have any hatred, bitterness, resentment against anybody. Now, there are people I profoundly disagree with, and I certainly resent their viewpoint, and I say, you know, people say, well, you have to respect everybody's point of view. No, I don't. I respect their right to a different point of view. That doesn't mean I respect their point of view, though. I respect their right to have a point of view different than mine. So that I respect them as human beings with that God-given right to have a point of view that is wrong. But I don't respect the point of view. If it's stupid, if it's wicked, if it's twisted, if it's evil, I don't respect it. And I don't know why people say that. Well, you know, I respect your opinion. I don't respect your opinion unless your opinion is right. I expect your right to have an opinion, certainly. I do. I respect your right to have an opinion, and I respect your right to have an opinion that is different than mine. And I'm not going to be angry because you have an opinion different than mine. What makes me angry is when people start taking perverse opinions, wicked opinions, twisted opinions, and trying to force those on everyone, on men, women, and children, even though the things that they believe are completely off base. They can be perverse, disgusting, depraved. It's like all this gender garbage and this drag queen garbage and all this stuff that people are pushing it on children. It's sick. It's disgusting. And yes, I do not respect those viewpoints at all. I respect the right of the people who hold those viewpoints to have them as long as they're not actually doing harm to a person. In this case, in many ways, in my view, they are doing harm. And so I don't like them because I don't like what they represent. I don't like what they stand for. But I'm not interested in hurting them. I'm not interested in killing them. I'm not interested in harming them. And I said before, I would defend them against that. I said all that as a prelude to say this. If there's any person that tempts me more than anybody else that I can think of right now, and this includes Joe Biden and Barack Obama and a whole cast of clowns, boy, it's Anthony Fauci. You say, well, and by the way, I don't hate Anthony Fauci either, but I'm saying, if I were going to be tempted, boy, he would be a candidate. And the reason is, I really believe this with all my heart, folks, and I don't say this trying to be over the top with my rhetoric or being hyperbolic or, any. I say it because I really believe this is factually true. I believe that Anthony Fauci is responsible for the deaths of millions of people. I really believe that. I believe that Anthony Fauci is such a narcissist, such an egomaniac, and he's so self-absorbed and so interested in himself and his own power and his own prestige and money. And I believe money is playing a part in this too. That and arrogance, that the tremendous hurt and hardship and death that he inflicted upon others has never touched him, not one bit. And I do believe that he's responsible for the death of millions. I think that Marjorie Taylor Greene has it absolutely right, that Anthony Fauci should be in jail for crimes against humanity. I really believe that. And I believe he's such an arrogant soul that and so proud. I mean, let's face it, a man into whose house you go, who's got portraits of himself around him, something's wrong with him. I mean, something's wrong with him. What normal human being does that? Sits around and stares at portraits of themselves. I mean, there's something really bizarre about that. But leaving that aside for the moment, I think that's symptomatic of who he really is. He was in this hearing yesterday and was being questioned. Of course, the Democrats are all bowing at his feet and kissing his feet, he's this, the second coming. And, oh, Dr. Fauci, you saved us. Oh, thank you so much for your service. I mean, my goodness gracious, why not just build a shrine to the man and bow down and worship it? But the fact of the matter is he lied to us repeatedly. He said things to us that were not true. He held on to things that were proven to be untrue. He violated, or certainly conspired with others to violate our constitutional rights to censor us because he did not want any counter opinion, any opinion that varied from his own to be heard. See, I just said earlier, I don't respect your opinion necessarily, but I expect your right to have one and to express one that's different than my own. And I defend your right to have one and express an opinion different than my own. And I mean that. Not Fauci. No. You have an opinion, even if you're a medical doctor, as one of the congressional representatives questioning him said, I was actually working in the ER. I actually treated with people with COVID. I actually watched people die. I was on the front lines, and everything I was reporting based upon my experience and my observations was censored, suppressed, and I was even threatened with the loss of license if I expressed any viewpoint different than what was coming down from the NIH and Fauci and all his cohorts. He said, and I was there actually helping people, treating people. But my opinion, my scientific opinions and observations and experiences were absolutely devalued. So don't tell me it was about the science. Oh, it's about science, it's about science. No, it's about control. And I said that repeatedly. Fauci expressed not 1 ounce of regret over anything, just justified himself over and over and over and over and over again. On the lab leak theory, oh, I kept an open mind. I never tried to debunk the lab leak theory. I mean, just a bold-faced lie. Because we all know that Fauci was out there trying to debunk the lab leak theory. And he was trying to debunk it because through, I think, this organization called Ecosystems or something like that, his agency, the National Institute for Allergies and Infectious Diseases, gave a grant to this Ecosystems organization, which then gave money to the Wuhan laboratory. So he knew that our taxpayer dollars were going to Wuhan lab, and he was trying to cover his own rear end by essentially denying that that COVID-19 came from the lab in Wuhan. That was the game, so that he could not be blamed for having unleashed this virus on the world. And then, well, but you signed off on the grants. Oh, yeah, but a committee does this. I don't know anything about it. I'm relying. I mean, at every turn, he didn't know anything about it. He wasn't involved with that. What's that got to do with me? I didn't know anything. I mean, man, talk about the 3 monkeys. See no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. He knew nothing. You know, it was like not Colonel Klink, but what was it on MASH? That guard that for the prisoners of war. I know nothing. That was Fauci. He knew nothing. He's a liar. I think about all the people who died in nursing homes and hospitals who couldn't see their loved ones because the hysteria that had been created had banned loved ones from seeing their sick relatives. A son couldn't go see his mother. A husband couldn't go see his wife. I know because a friend of mine had a sick wife. She survived it, but had a sick wife, and he could not go see her. And she was sick for 2 or 3 months. He could not go see, nobody in the family could go see her. Thank God she survived. I mean, that was all Anthony Fauci. And here's where he got nailed. I don't know which representative this was, but here's where he got nailed. This representative played an excerpt of a phone call, not a phone call, an interview that Fauci had for an audio book that was being written by Michael Specter, was the author, and he was interviewing Fauci for his audio book. And I guess Michael Specter, whoever was doing the interviewing, asked Fauci about the use of mandates and force. And he's saying, you know, people are skeptical about the so-called vaccine. People are skeptical about it. And I don't know any way you get people to just get over that other than by mandates, he said, which the government doesn't like to use that word. They don't like to speak of it that way. And I'm paraphrasing, but that's what it essentially was saying. The government's afraid to use such words because, of course, those words bespeak force. Now, I don't know whether you caught this, but this was Anthony Fauci's response. And I'm quoting now, word for word, verbatim. He says, quote, once people feel empowered and protected legally, and he's talking about the people who are responsible for enforcing whatever mandates the government hands down. He says, once people feel empowered and protected legally, you're going to have schools, universities, and colleges are going to say, you want to come to this college, buddy, you're going to get vaccinated. Lady, you are going to get vaccinated. Big corporations like Amazon and Facebook and all of those others are going to say, you want to work for us, you're going to get vaccinated. It's been proven that when you make it difficult for people in their lives, they lose their ideological bull, and he used the profane word, and they get vaccinated. And you could just hear the venom dripping from his lips, the idea, how dare these little peons contradict the great Anthony Fauci and not do what I want them to do. And so what he's saying is, you start lowering the hammer on them. You start firing them from their jobs. You start denying them jobs. You start making their lives a living hell so that they can't earn a living. So they're stuck. Their families could starve out. They can't pay their mortgage payment. You do that, he said, then they lose their ideological blank and they get vaccinated. In other words, Fauci's got in his own mind a little plan, which is to, that's what the censorship was all about. It is to absolutely crush all dissenting opinions and ideas about the treatment of COVID, about the responses to COVID, and it is to force people to bow to the demands of Anthony Fauci and the pharmaceutical industry that you get this shot. And he called objections ideological blank. That's the Anthony Fauci. See, that's who he really is. All this stuff now, I didn't know anything. I didn't hear anything. I didn't see anything. I wasn't involved. Oh, I signed it, but I didn't really know. He even got down to where the assistant to the director of his agency, which was his direct assistant, he said, oh, I didn't really work closely with him. I mean, it was almost laughable. I didn't really work closely with him. He said, well, he said he could walk into your office anytime. Oh, well, that's not true. Well, did he ever walk into your office unannounced? Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, he did. But, I mean, you listen to this stuff and just go, what a liar. Because there's only one thing that matters to him, Anthony Fauci. You see, this with all these leftists, and by the way, ideological stuff, that just goes to show the man is a confirmed leftist. How these so-called scientists who believe in the science become leftists and end up believing all of this talk about ideological nonsense, my way of saying it, they have bought into such lies. Remember, Anthony Fauci was the one who told us that the scientists at Wuhan laboratory under a communist dictatorship were reputable scientists. Reputable scientists. They're puppets for Xi Jinping. What do you mean, they'll come to any conclusion they're ordered to come to. Are you kidding me? They're reputable scientists. Oh, my goodness gracious. And then he sits silent while this representative says to him, are you familiar with the case of Allison Williams? Allison Williams sought an exemption because at her job, because she and her husband were being treated by a fertility expert because they were trying to have a baby. And the fertility expert said, probably better not to have the shot until you have the baby, because that might prevent you from getting pregnant. And of course, we know that the shot was associated with some miscarriages, and there were other things that had to do with getting pregnant and carrying a baby to term. She was not only denied the exemption, she was fired from her job. Here is a medical doctor saying to her, don't get this shot right now because it's going to interfere with, potentially, you're having a baby. She goes to her job and says, look, I'm trying to have a baby. And they say, too bad. You don't want to get this shot, you're fired. And they kicked her out of her job. That's Anthony Fauci. Which is exactly what he said. Yeah, you start. See, because her trying to have a baby and trying to follow the guidance of her fertility doctor, that was just ideological blank from Anthony Fauci's point of view, because you're not doing what he's telling you to do, so you don't have any valid reason. It's just a bunch of irrational ideological nonsense. I think about the millions of Americans who suffered under that regime, and all of us did. And by the way, just for the record, you all probably know, my wife and I never got the shot. My daughter got pregnant during that time. She never got the shot. I have never, my wife and I had a mild case of COVID back in November of 2020. We have not had a problem since. We have relatives who got the shot, got the boosters, got this, got that, got the other. They've had COVID several times. And then he said, you won't have a severe case. But we know people who've had severe cases since they got the shot. They just flat out lied to us. The social distancing, that just came up out of nowhere. And then when he got asked about that, well, no, I didn't mean it came up out of nowhere. It came from the CDC. Well, what was it based on? Well, we didn't have a chance to do a study. In other words, they just made it up out of whole cloth. The people who were constantly telling us, you're a bad person if you don't yield to the science, they weren't talking about yielding to the science. They were talking about yielding to them. That's what they were really saying. They weren't talking, because this stuff was not based on science. Remember the lockdowns, and we find out the best place in the world to be is outside, and they had us locked down. They had a curfew here in Virginia, a stupid curfew. You can't be outside between 12 and midnight. I said, well, was that when what is COVID out hunting you down between midnight and 5 a.m.? I mean, it had nothing to do with science. It had nothing to do with what was best for people. It had to do with this irrational desire for control and power over people. They got their shot, if you will forgive the pun. They got their shot and they took it. I mean, to me, it takes some callous disregard for humanity to tell people you can't see a sick relative because it's too dangerous. When you could put on, my goodness, a hazmat suit. I mean, give me a break. They could have worked that out. But the powers that be, the elitists in charge of that process, didn't want it to be worked out because they wanted that control. And the poor minions under them were so plied with and overwhelmed with fear and hysteria that they thought, oh my goodness, you let somebody in to visit a relative, we're all going to die. I remember people saying, don't take hydroxychloroquine, it'll kill you. I know lots of people took hydroxychloroquine. It didn't kill anybody. I took it. Didn't kill anybody. I mean, I think that at some point there needs to be an investigation of trial of Anthony Fauci for crimes against humanity, because I really believe some of this stuff, just like that statement he did out of sheer venality, having nothing to do with science whatsoever. And he claims, I got to go, but he claims that he didn't do any of that based upon his own interests, but he was the guy controlling all the money. And if you didn't adhere to him, guess what? Your grants were going to dry up, and you were not going to be doing any research that was based on any kind of grants from the federal government. I got to go. Listen, pray for us. God bless you. Stand up, step up, speak up, refuse to back up, because we cannot be defeated if we will not quit, because we are on God's side.